Welcome to the Feeling Lighter podcast. I'm Coach Tyler here with Dr. Lisa. How are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm doing great because you agreed to an episode where we could talk about big life changes. And I've got some life changes I'm sure I'll be able to comment on here. But we were just talking before the episode started. And even since I've known you, you've completely changed, right? You've completely transformed as a person. When I first met you, you were somebody who definitely spoke her mind and was starting to take up space and starting to show up for herself. But I could tell there was a lot of, I don't know what the right word is, but maybe like you felt kind of tortured with the decisions that you needed to make in your life. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of people, when they start approaching a path of personal growth, especially when they're examining their beliefs, especially when they're learning how to ask themselves a question like, what do I need? What do I want? Yeah. How do I want my life to look? It can be really scary. Mm-hmm. And some people, they start to experience those questions. They turn and they run away and they numb themselves and they try to avoid thinking about those things. And other people, they go through the challenge and the pain, frankly, that is required to unravel some of these beliefs. Mm-hmm. And so I'd love to start by just asking you to share kind of your journey over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I would just love to hear about your experience and how you made those decisions and why you made those decisions. And also like share some of the challenging points, mm-hmm. because I think that's where the people who are listening, who are questioning their decisions, they need to hear that, because it's always better on the other side. But you've got to go through it in order to get out the other side.
And that's the part.
So I'm going to pass the mic over to you and say, hey, let us know what I'm talking about here.
Yeah. So I appreciate you seeing the changes in me, because I do think there's been a lot over the course of my entire life. I think I've been unraveling things for like the last 10 years or so. But yeah, these last 2, 3, 4 years have been probably the largest shifts in my life ever.
Yeah.
And it has so much to do with like everything, really. I think when we met, I was really finding my voice in the anti-diet world, in the body image world, learning about eating disorders, and all of the shifts I was making in my career were things that I was sort of addressing and finding out and understanding about myself in my personal life.
Yeah.
So as I was shifting away from diets, I looked and saw like, oh my God, I've been dieting my whole life and I've always hated my body and I never, thought I was worthy of anything, like in that whole process. Now I'm in therapy this whole time because no way can I sort through this alone.
Yeah.
But I was also unlearning a lot of the religious sort of standards that I grew up under. And one of the most pivotal pieces of that pie, I guess, was my marriage. And so being in a marriage, staying in a marriage out of obligation and not recognizing how it was tearing me apart and how I was becoming less of myself and I was getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And I always viewed myself as sort of outspoken, a leader. I had a lot of education. I was on debate teams and student senate. Like I was always like someone you could look to speak up. But I had muted such a huge part of who I was because I believed that, being a woman looked a certain way and being a wife looked a certain way. And I didn't come to actualize who I really was until a couple of years ago. So you sort of met me through that. And it was really hard because it's like for someone who really values and appreciates structure and boxes and consistency and knowing day-to-day planning, this process of sort of unraveling required me to like pull the rug from under myself as like just fall flat on my ass and like rebuild from there. And that process is just hard. Like it's like taking the next step but not seeing where the step is. So you're like so hesitant and scared, like, but you have, like you said, you have to go through it to get to the other side. And I'm emerging on that other side and it feels really good, but it required, letting go of my expectations for my body. It required letting go of my marriage. It required, moving. It required just restructuring a life that I never intended. Like I can't tell people enough how I despise the thought of ever having to be a single mother. Like, just thought it was, I grew up with a single mom. I know she did her best, but I was like, I never want this for my life. And now I'm actively living that life, like walking that walk. And there's so many beautiful parts, but there's so many ugly parts and so many difficult parts. And so recognizing that the trajectory of our lives isn't like this, like it's like this all the way. And I tell people that, but living it is like one of those things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's been very hard, but it's been very rewarding in a lot of ways as well.
You know, you said something powerful, which is you made this shift when you hit this kind of rock bottom point. Mm-hmm. And I think that anybody who goes on a path of growth is going to have moments where they hit those rock bottom points. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is we think of those rock bottoms as like, I'm at my lowest. Yeah. But usually what's happening is it's our own recognition that we are more worthy than the situation that we're in. And something that always touches me from one of my favorite books, The Four Agreements, is a line that says, we only allow others to abuse us slightly less than we abuse ourselves. And so if we decide to change our circumstances, whether that's our work, whether that's our home environment, our relationships, etc., it requires us to recognize that we are probably more valuable than the way that we're being treated in that circumstance. And that is a really hard thing to do, to pause and say, I deserve better. Mm-hmm. I deserve to be treated better, and then take action on it. Mm-hmm. So how did you do that? How did you take that step?
You know, it was hard because I could say that, like I could verbally say that, specifically as it relates to my marriage. I could say to my ex, I deserve better than this. I don't like the way you're treating what you're doing to me. And I have been told by this person, that's not true. Like, you don't get to decide. It was almost like who are you to say that you deserve X, Y, and Z?
Well, I think that's a red flag.
A red flag.
If someone's telling you how you should feel about something when you share with them how you feel, that's a red flag, right?
It was definitely a red flag. It was very hurtful, but it was... it was me sort of coming into the understanding that is one of the examples of the really ugly, like, gut punches that you take when you know you have to make a change, and there were many in my marriage, unfortunately. Being a small business owner is always, challenging, but we were going through a transition where post-COVID, right, so things had got crazy, and then I was moving my space into a shared space. So basically, all of my PT equipment and stuff was in our garage. And my husband at the time said to me, what are you doing with your business? What is your vision here? Because I don't see it. All I see is a bunch of stuff stacked up in my garage. And I was like, your garage, and you don't see my vision. It's like, who am I? Why do I hold no value to you? Why is my dream and something that it's so evident that I've been called to do? And that was actually a time where I started saving messages from people, like on social media, and from my clients that would say, like, oh my God, that was so impactful. You really helped me. I know you're because I always felt aligned in what I was doing, but I was married to someone who didn't see the value in what I was doing and who constantly downplayed it and constantly said things to make me question my value and my impact. And so that was really hard, but unfortunately I had to endure those experiences to come into the knowing of who he was and why we weren't a good fit anymore. Yeah. And it boiled down to a significant difference in values. Yeah. He valued money, and he valued notoriety and sort of being put on a pedestal and being seen as this great provider person and having flashy things and doing stuff. I never valued those things. I always valued impact, and I always valued relationships, and I always valued making a difference. One of my core values is making a difference and experiencing peace. So I will forego a really, really, really high salary in a, a super duper stressful work, because I don't feel like I'm built for it. I've done it, in my, like, growing up, but I never felt aligned with that lifestyle, which is why I started my practice so soon after graduating from PT school because I knew I wasn't going to be able to do that long term and not feel whole.
Yeah.
And so our values were very misaligned. And so he saw what I was doing as counterproductive to his goals. He even said to me one time, because we've had financial struggles many times in our relationship. And he said to me one day, if I had a doctorate degree, we would never be struggling financially. And I was like, as you can imagine, that really hurt. And I was just thinking like, well, first of all, you're like a traditional man, so why is it even my responsibility to provide for our family? That's really one way to go.
A little bit of a
with it.
juxtaposition
It's
in his
it's like,
words
oh,
and beliefs, right?
you want me at home raising kids and cleaning the house, but also somehow making lots of money. Not sure how to do that, but it was so hurtful because again, it diminished my value. And I remember I went through my phone the other day because I was like, I wanted to see if I still had this long note I had written, but I deleted it. And I think that was a part of my healing moving forward. But it was a note that I wrote that said, shit I do or shit I pay for and things that I do since you can't figure it out or you can't see them. It was something like that because he had said something to the effect of like, I don't know, you don't do that much around here, or I don't even see what you pay for, or that type of thing. And so I made a list to justify my belonging and to justify my value. Like I do this and I do this. I do this every single day and I do this and I pay for that. And it was long. It was really long and I felt very validated by it. But then I realized like that list doesn't even speak to the whole of who I am. Like I'm so much bigger than a long ass list. I can't even articulate the things that I did as a wife, as a mother, as in many ways a leader of a family, in securing the emotional and physical and spiritual and financial well-being of our home, and it was so depressing to see myself through his eyes, and sometimes in your moments of weakness you start to believe it. And think that that's what you are. And so, I don't know, I just remember so many nights questioning myself and crying and feeling so sad and so, emotionally abused, because that's what I was. I was emotionally abused. And I'm not, people that know me, I'm from Detroit. I have a sharp tongue if I need to. But when it came to my marriage and my home, I always valued peace. So I'm not going to be like getting in people's faces and yelling. And that's not how I spar or fight or disagree with my partner, because I value peace in my home. But I just held a lot in, and it's like that emotional constipation after a while where you're just stuffing it down and taking all the blows and getting slapped and punched emotionally. And then just like, at some point realizing like this isn't sustainable. Like I'm not even healthy anymore. I'm sad more than I'm happy. I'm confused. My home is uncomfortable. I'm walking on eggshells. I can't show up as my best self. I am literally trying to get through sessions where I'm coaching people and I'm like internally like just dying, just crying, just canceling days sometimes. Like I can't even do it. I can't even show up. I couldn't show up for myself. I couldn't stand up for myself. And now I can't show up for the people that have paid me money to do it. So it was hard.
I'm hearing a lot of you going through this journey and just feeling your worth. It feels like you knew deep down inside that you were really valuable. And yet the person who's supposed to reflect that value to you and lift you up was putting you down to lift themselves up. And I think that you're certainly not alone in that position. Right. I think that a lot of people experience a relationship that doesn't serve them in a positive way and tends to serve them in a negative way. And yet a lot of people stay in those relationships because they don't cultivate enough self-worth to say, I will not do this anymore. Yeah. What do you want to say to those people who are feeling like, oh, I'm in this too. Like, I know I'm in a place where I'm not valued. I'm not seen. Maybe like you, they've tried to express that they need to feel seen. They need to feel valued. And their partner just ignores everything that they're saying, or even worse, tries to convince them that their feelings aren't valid. Right. What do you say to them to help them cultivate more self-worth and make a decision that's right for them?
The conditioning that encourages us to stay in those scenarios they are a little overwhelming because a lot of times it's a cultural thing, like within your religion, within your community, within your, you know, your race, ethnicity sometimes. And I sort of talked about this as much as I could when we had Dr. Ramani on the podcast, and talking about breaking through those social constructs that say, you know, you're supposed to be here, you're supposed to stay in this, you're not supposed to move. But it's a bigger step than what it maybe feels like or looks like. And it's a series of small steps, really, that process of saying, like, okay, I know better. I inherently know that this isn't good for me, but I'm stuck. I find myself stuck and I can't make the next move. So for me, and I know it looks different for everyone, but for me, the stepping stones looked like spending time with people who cared about me. Like, you know, being married, I always tried to prioritize time with my family, time with my husband. That was really important. And I always kept my friends, but they were not the top priority. So for me, that shifted. So I started really prioritizing being with my friends because I have been blessed, just gifted with amazing friends, primarily women that are just, they are just 10 toes down for me. Like, whatever I say I need, they are right there, you know, like waiting. And so I had to reprioritize filling myself up by being with people who poured into me consistently and being with people where there was no judgment around me needing that attention and that pouring. It wasn't like, oh, here she comes again with her sad story. You know, they were very like loving and kind and helpful. And I can't say enough about my friends, and I don't want to cry, but that was step one for me. So my encouragement to anyone who is in this space is to find the people that love you, even if it's just one person that you can identify. Find that person, because we talked about this on another episode. We don't heal from this type of stuff just alone. Do we have alone times? Yes. Do we get in our corners, our closets? And yes, there's work that you have to do alone, but you can't heal from this type of emotional abuse and neglect by yourself. So you have to find at least one person who loves you and pours into you, and you just have to start absorbing that, and that becomes your fuel. So that's what it was for me. My friends kind of became my fuel for understanding, like, Lisa, you are very valuable. What you do matters. You're important. You're an amazing mom. You know, you've done all these things. It was like they reminded me what I knew, but had sort of tucked away because what my reality was showing me didn't fit that narrative anymore. And it was like this reminder that, like, oh gosh, you know, when I started my marriage, I was 25 and I had just completed my doctorate degree and I was making really great money. And I supported our family financially for about 8 years, like completely financially supported, and still was, you know, domestically inclined, cleaning, cooking. And then, you know, once children came into the picture, still the primary caregiver. So what I realized is like, oh my God, I had been devoting all of my being to this relationship, to this marriage, to this family. And it took away from what I could do with my career and my calling in some ways,
Sure.
right? But for me, it was the sacrifice you make, and it's fine. And when you have a loving and supportive partner, you understand that there's going to be trade-offs with that. There'll be times where he's doing the thing and you're sitting back, and then vice versa. But when I realized my marriage was extremely unhealthy is once my partner got to the point where he was primarily supporting us financially and the day-to-day bills, and I was doing the extra stuff. That's when I realized, like, oh, like, he doesn't look at things the same way I do. Like, now my value is not enough because I'm not contributing financially the way he thinks I should. So back to the actual question, finding the people that love you, that remind you of your worth and your value, and letting them pour into you is key. And then what I hope happens is that becomes sort of a contagious feeling, and you start to treat yourself like that you love yourself and that you care about yourself. For me, that meant carving out time for myself. So I started on a journey of like meditating and praying and stretching every single day. So I would get up. I couldn't wait to get out of that bed that we shared, but I would get up every morning, go across the room. I would put on my headphones and turn on meditation music, and I would just pray, and I would cry, and I would stretch my body. So I combined movement and prayer and then silent meditation with getting back in touch with who I was. And that is what started to help me see my value. That and being with people who loved me and poured into me. And then I was able to start treating myself better. And when you are treating yourself well and you're in a relationship with someone who is not treating you well, it is so easy to see, like, who's at fault here.
Yeah.
Like, it's not lining up for a reason.
Yeah, that's true.
So
I think everybody in a relationship, especially a challenging one, goes through that journey of you're not showing up, so I can't be happy. And I think what I'm hearing you say is at some point you have to distance yourself from the reality that they're not showing up for you. I mean, it's great to have tactful conversations with people who are close to you and say, hey, here's what I really need in this relationship. But after that conversation, your control is gone. You have to allow them to either show up and say, I want to do this work with you because you're really important and meaningful to me. And I might be able to offer some of it. I might not be able to offer some of it. And do that work together as best you can. Or I can't do this work, right? And most people will just try to convince you that you're the problem. And then the fight just goes back and forth.
Yeah.
But I also love what you said about surrounding yourself with people who uplift you and validate those feelings of self-worth. It's not quite the same story for me, but I know many years ago we were doing lots of things in the fitness space and selling cookbooks and supplements and ab products, and we were doing all the same stuff that the fitness industry does now, that now we're like, this is the wrong way to do things. And that transition for me was kind of hard. It was like, whoa, like, how do I let go of the guilt and the shame of making people feel really shitty about themselves, thinking that was the way to create motivation for them. And it wasn't until I was working with a mindfulness coach who now has become one of my best friends, actually. And I was expressing this guilt with him one day. And he grabbed my hand and he just looked at me in the eyes and said, you're a good man, Tyler. You are showing up in a different way because you know a different way. And that's big. And you've got to let go of the past. When you are asleep at the wheel, unfortunately, you can't continuously hold criticism and judgment towards yourself, because the moment we are aware of the things that we're doing wrong, it's really easy to just judge the fact that we're doing them wrong and stay stuck in that loop that's still focused and centered around negativity and self-criticism. And it was so helpful to me just to have somebody reflect to me in a really authentic way, like, this isn't your fault. You can let that go. And I think there's a lot of people who don't have deep, meaningful relationships like that in their life. And it's like literally one of the most important things that you need in order to feel happy and content. It's to have people around you who can hold you when you're feeling weak and uplift you and reflect back to you who you truly are. You know?
No, that's vital. And even in healthy marriages or healthy romantic relationships, you can't count on that person to be
not always
all the things. You know, you have to have friendships. You have to have other familial relationships. You have to cultivate positive relationships with more people, because we heal in community, and we need more than just a singular person in that regard. So I think it is important to be able to have somebody tell you, you know, very objectively or from their perspective, like, I really think you're a good person.
You're doing great.
You're doing really great. And that is healing in and of itself. And it's just the reminder, I think, that some of us need to keep going, and then to trust our instincts and make the decision that like,
that you know is right.
I know it's right.
Even if it's hard.
There's no rule book or guidebook for real on how to navigate marriage, relationships, raising children, you know, even running a business. It's still different from industry to industry and person to person and location to
month
location.
to month.
And month to month. But being able to tune into your instincts, what it says is that I trust myself. Trust myself, I know myself, I respect myself, I love myself. And I know that what is for me can't be missed. And that's why I don't, you know, talking about my separation, my divorce, my relationship is challenging in some ways, but it actually is very healing too, which is why I've always kind of been an open book about it and volunteer. I'm an oversharer, you know, but it's cathartic. It's helpful.
That's why
for
you're
me.
a podcast
That's
host.
Why I'm a podcast host.
Social media influencer.
because I do think that people relate to the depths of who we are and not just to the mask that we put out there, right? So I'm not the first or last person to go through this very icky and ugly situation after a 17-year marriage, but maybe parts of my story resonate with people where they get the strength to make the decisions that are best for them, and even when they're not the popular decisions. But I say all that to say I don't regret the marriage. I don't regret the relationship. I literally had to go through it to become who I am. And that doesn't, absolve my ex of all the horrible things he said and did. But I don't believe that everything is happening to me. I think that things happen for me. And that is just a part of the pie. Like, it just comes with the journey. We're going to have negative, experiences with people, and we're going to be mistreated, and we have decisions to make around those behaviors, and sometimes we sit in it way longer than we probably should, but the triumph is in making the decision at some point I'm not doing it anymore. And it felt really, really, really good to make that decision. And it was so hard leading up to it. There were so many tears.
So much anxiety.
So much. I mean, my chest was like tight every day for a year. Every day for a year, a deep breath was like, fuck. Like, it was so hard. And it was more difficult because, and I guess everyone has this, I still had to show up for kids at work, speaking engagements, like it was just like, but it feels so inauthentic because you feel like you're just, pretending things are one way and they're not. And when I finally talked to my friends about what had been going on in my marriage, they were just like, Lisa, they were almost mad, like, why didn't you tell us? And I was just like, I couldn't, like, I didn't have the wherewithal. I didn't have the strength. I wasn't ready to accept what was happening. I was hoping he would change. I was thinking things would get better. And, it was so freeing to finally just name the damn thing and say what was happening to me and be open and honest. And then I just couldn't shut up about it after that because it was, such a significant part of my life and how I transitioned. But when my kids and I moved out, which was just in November, I walked into my new house and I took the deepest breath and I cried and it felt so good. And it was kind of like, this was the hardest thing ever. You never could have imagined this. You never wanted this, but it feels so good to walk into a space and know now that the energy is what it's supposed to be. The peace is there. The contentment is there. And I don't have that thing gnawing at me, that pressure on my chest anymore. Yeah. And that doesn't mean like this life isn't hard. Shit is still very hard. When you produce children with someone, you have to keep dealing with them. So it's still hard, but I feel so much better. Like, and I see nothing but good things, like, coming for me and my children. So I'm super grateful. And I don't believe in coincidences. And I think it was my alignment with WeShape at the time of going through that. Like, this is where I get a little emotional because, my business has struggled so much for a couple years off and on. And, like, y'all don't even know this, but participating in the things and working with you all, like, sustained me financially so that I could leave. And I didn't even tell people that because it's embarrassing. I don't know why, but it felt embarrassing. But it was a part of me getting free, like having this new outlet, this new thing that was so impactful and so in alignment with who I am. And then it's like, oh, this actually gave me what I needed to not be financially bound to this person, who was set on mistreating me forever. So, okay, you got the tears you wanted.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. No, for real. It really means a lot to me, and you're doing a great job, Lisa.
Thank you.
You said something really beautiful just a minute ago that I want to highlight because I feel like it's something I don't hear very often, and I'm really aligned with it. And that is when we experience things in our life, there's kind of two paths we can go with it. We can hold resentment towards those experiences, which is kind of, to me, a little bit of a sign that we haven't accepted our life and really fully embraced our life. Or we can hold gratitude for our experiences because they shaped who we are. And my view has always been that if we truly love who we are right now, then we have a recognition that everything we had to go through to get here was necessary And so even the challenges, even
Yeah.
the abuse, even the horrible things that have happened in your life have shaped you.
Yeah.
And if you're still resentful, if you're still frustrated, it's okay to be sad or angry or things like that. But if you're still trying to think you can change that, then you haven't accepted yourself all the way. You haven't embraced yourself all the way. And so I just want to echo that, because I feel like it's such an important way to forgive, to let go, to embrace your life, and to truly find love for yourself. And I don't think very many people talk about that. We always want to blame, right? Instead
Yeah.
of accept and really understand that who we are today is shaped by all of our experiences.
Yeah, I think it's just letting go of the regret, like letting go of, oh,
I wasted all this
wasted all
time,
this
or-
time.
yeah.
I should have, I could have, and the reality is you didn't, and there's a reason that you didn't, and you weren't ready.
Yeah.
You weren't ready,
Yeah.
and that's what I had to accept for myself. I wasn't ready. Did I know probably 10 years ago this is probably not it? Yeah, I did, but I wasn't ready to trust myself.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready to step out there. That was too big of a leap for me at that time. My children were really small, and it was really scary. And I have to honor that girl 10 years ago. Like that would have been a lot. And
Yeah.
the worst thing you can do is move when you're not ready. The worst thing you can do is step out of alignment with what you feel, is right, just because you don't want to look stupid or, whatever. I mean, it was tons of embarrassment. I dealt with infidelity. Like we could go on for days, but just recognizing like I wasn't in a space to let that thing go. I wasn't ready. I didn't have what I needed. I hadn't learned what I needed to learn, and I just wasn't emotionally prepared. So I don't hold any any regret for that relationship, for the marriage. I got 3 phenomenal children out of the deal, and so much learned experience. I mean, when I was, we were talking about this before we started recording, but when I got married, I was 25, and I was like a super duper judgy church girl, like just so naive. I thought I had my whole
God,
life.
we think we know it all when we're that age, don't we? We know nothing.
I thought I knew everything. I had my life mapped out, and I always say this, but this is how I went through my whole life. When I enrolled in college, that first day, I opened the course catalog and I planned my classes out through graduation. And then I started looking at the classes in PT school because I knew I was going to do that. I wanted a roadmap, and I just wanted to follow it. I just wanted that peace, which is there's nothing peaceful about that, but you think it is. But that's how I wanted my life to go. And so when I got married, I was super young. I was super conservative. I was very judgy. I saw things very much black and white, right and wrong, this or that. And I had to be in this ugly marriage to break down the parts of
To
me
break all those apart, yeah.
and let go of the judgment. I used to judge people when they got divorced. That's why it was so hard for me to make the step toward divorce. I used to be like, what God put together, you should just never break apart. You have to figure it out, And it's like, girl, you shut up. Like, as the old folks would say, just keep living, baby. Just keep living, because you'll see, like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so I had to have that experience. Do I love that I had to have it? No. Was it very hurtful? Yes. Did it tear away at parts of me? Did I have so many moments of like just sadness and pain? Yes. But it's a part of life. We don't experience joy and beauty without that pain and that ugliness. So I don't regret any of it. It's just a part of my story of who I am now. So.
Yeah. I would go a step further too and say, at least in my own experience, the more I can embrace the suffering with like open arms and feel the feels that come across when that happens, and later on, usually not in the moment, find the gratitude for those experiences, the more access I have to experiencing joy. It's just like you have to let the pendulum swing further from side to side, and the more willing you are to embrace those ends, wow, it's a really rich life. It can feel really challenging at times, and it can feel really glorious at times, and that's the human condition, right? And so I just want to swing the pendulum the other way before we wrap this and say, especially in the last, let's call it 6 or so months, I feel like the Lisa that I see now is a Lisa who has so much more self-confidence, so much less it's not necessarily criticism, but I felt like your wheels were always turning in your mind, and you were trying to figure out your situation.
Yeah.
And once you made the decision and you went through it and you got through the other side and you got settled, I remember you saying, like, I can't remember what it was. You were like sleeping on your bed with like no sheets or something, and you were just like, this is the greatest night's sleep of my entire life.
Yeah.
And it made me so happy just to see you feeling so happy and feeling so free. So tell us about that. I think people need to hear that on the other side of big, challenging things like this is usually a greater sense of self-worth, of self-awareness, and of joy in life.
Yeah, there's so much freedom, and it's just beautiful because I love this part of the story because I'm raising children, and specifically I have 2 daughters that are almost 14, almost 12, and then my son just turned 10. The freedom that comes with this new version of me, this evolved version of me, is just, it leaves me open for so much more authenticity in my relationships and the ability to connect better with people, and especially my kids, and just being able to understand them. Being super conservative, as you might imagine, impacted me in every aspect of my life. We talked about this a little bit before we were recording, but just in engaging with people romantically, sexually, like this idea that, like, as a woman who believes in God, like, you can experience pleasure and you can prioritize your pleasure and you can explore and be free and not feel like judged all the time. Like, I had so much judgment around dating, relationships, sex, sexuality, and like having that weight off my shoulders. I just re-entered the dating game, and it is really fun, y'all. Let me just say, I am enjoying myself because I don't have all these false pretenses about who I'm supposed to present, how I'm supposed to look, what I'm like. This is me.
You can just show up as your authentic self.
Accept me or move on because I accept me. And there's something so powerful in being able to say that. I don't feel like I have to contort myself to like attract a man or I can be me, and my light will draw in the people that are for me. Yeah. And then if they come and I don't like them, I can say, God bless you, no thank you. It's so beautiful. It's so freeing. It feels like that night's sleep. When I moved and left my ex, I took our bedroom furniture, but I refused to take any linen. So I wouldn't take a sheet, a pillow. Like, I left all that with him. It was a part of my...
You want to keep the juju off
keep the juju off, yes. And it was a part of me starting my new life. And so when I went and bought all of my linen, I had ordered some of it, so it hadn't come initially. So yes, I was sleeping on the bed with an old comforter from one of my kids' rooms, and it was amazing. I had like a throw pillow, but I was so happy because I was no longer energetically sharing a space with someone who I really don't believe had any capacity to love me at all. And I felt so good and so free and so happy. And I downgraded, went from a 4,000 square foot house to a 2,000 square foot house and smaller room, but it didn't matter. It was a beautiful, beautiful experience. But when I went and got all of my linen, I was like, I want it to be all white. I want to feel like every morning I'm waking up in a hotel. And that's what I did. So my whole bed, all the pillows, all the sheets, it's a big down comforter. It's all white. And every morning I wake up and I'm grateful and I'm thankful and I love it. Just like the first day I slept in it. And it feels so good. And I decorated my bathroom in like a peachy pink color that I would never do with a man because, he wouldn't want that. It's too girly. And I go into my space and I'm happy and I love it. And, it's so nice. And that's not to say that I won't ever partner with a man again or live with one. I don't know. Maybe. But it's so nice to not have the pressure of someone else's rules, opinions, ideas, thoughts on my shoulders. I get to just live and be for me in this season. And I know seasons will change, but I'm so grateful of this season and so appreciative of where I am and what I get to do now. And, even though being a single mom can kind of suck. It's hard, but my kids are okay and I'm okay. And we live in a very peaceful home, and that's really, that's everything for me. So
yeah, well, I'm so happy to see that you were able to reclaim the peace that you were after, and that our paths got to cross at a time that was really helpful for you, and that you made some hard decisions and came out the other side feeling like a more authentic and free version of yourself, and that you're willing to share that with everyone today. Yeah. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you for giving me the space.
You bet. You're doing a great job. And thanks everyone for listening. Hope you all have an amazing day.